In this chapter, we'll see the basics of setting up and framing a camera in order to output rendered images. We can create a camera from the Create panel, and it's got its own category, Cameras. There's a pull-down list labeled Standard. If you click on that, you'll see we have Standard cameras and Arnold cameras. I'm not going to cover the Arnold cameras in this course. I'm going to stick with the native 3ds Max cameras. If you want to learn about the Arnold cameras, I covered that in another course, 3ds Max Rendering with Arnold. I'll set that back to Standard. It looks like we have 3 buttons here. That would seem to indicate that there are 3 different types of cameras. But actually there are only 2 types of cameras, Physical and Standard. The physical camera is a fairly accurate simulation of the optics of real-world cameras, with a film back and a lens size and so on. The Standard Max camera is from an earlier generation of the software, and it doesn't have any of those advanced features. The Physical and Standard cameras each come in 2 varieties. We can either have a target or no target. And the target is a look-at point or an aim point to control camera rotations. If there is no target, it's a free camera, and it can be freely rotated using the ordinary rotation gizmo. The old school Standard camera can be created with a target or as a free camera. We can change that status later, but we have the choice right now whether we want to create a targeted or a free camera. If we're creating a Standard camera, that is. The Physical camera is always created with a target. And if you want a free physical camera, you'll need to create it with a target and then change the parameters to remove the target later. Because the physical camera always has a target, we need to pay attention to which viewport we're going to create in. If we want to create a camera so that it's oriented in the conventional way, so that it's looking along the horizon line, we'll need to create that camera in the top or a perspective viewport. Click on the Physical button, go over to the top view. Click and hold the mouse down. Wherever you click will be the position of the camera. And as you hold the mouse button down and move the cursor, you're determining the position for the target. Release the mouse to complete that camera and its target. Right-click to exit out of camera creation mode. The camera is created at the current construction plane. If we create in the top view, that means we're creating at the XY plane with a Z elevation value of 0. I want to move the camera up. Right now it's sitting flat on the ground. And so that I don't introduce a tilt, I want to move the camera and its target. And so the way to do that is to click on the line that joins the camera to its target. That selects both of them. Then grab the Move tool, go over to an ortho view, such as the left view here. Right-click in that view so you don't lose your selection, and then just position that camera and its target. Move it up to, let's say, about 1.5 meters in height. Now we can load that camera into a viewport. I like to keep the perspective view as the God's eye point of view or the artist's point of view. Think of this as the director's viewpoint. We also need to load the actual camera output into a viewport. I'm going to sacrifice this front view over here. So go to the viewport label, click on Front, and from the pop-up menu choose Cameras, Phys Camera 001. Now we're looking through that camera's lens. And we can click to deselect everything so we're not distracted by that transform gizmo. Change the display mode of this viewport to shaded with the F3 keyboard shortcut. And also disable the grid with the shortcut G. To frame the shot, we can move the camera or its target. And that's a third-person mode of setting up a composition. With the Move tool still active, I can select the camera or its target and move either one of them to change the framing. Select the target, and we'll get a pan effect by moving that around. If I want to dolly forward or back in this third-person mode, then I'll want to switch to local coordinates. So for example, if I pan over to the side so that the line of sight is at a diagonal to the world grid, and then grab the camera itself, we'll see that the Move manipulator or gizmo is not aligned with the camera's line of sight. So it's kind of hard for me to get an accurate dolly movement. I can switch over to local coordinates and then the z-axis of local space is aligned with that camera's line of sight. To change the field of view, with that camera selected, we can go over to the Modify panel, and we've got the lens parameters over here. There's a focal length. That focal length interacts with the size of the virtual sensor as set here. If you're trying to match an existing shot, then these parameters might come in handy, but in most cases you simply want to specify the field of view as an angular value. Turn on Specify FOV, and then we can plug in a value here in the degrees field. If we want a wide angle shot, we can say maybe 80 degrees for the field of view. Now we've got a wide angle shot in our physical camera viewport. That's the basics of setting up a physical camera.